look at the first page of worksheet 3.1, 3.2, where we're now taking a recursive formula, looking at writing it as an explicit formula, and using that explicit formula to solve pieces on. So in this first one, we're given the recursive formula, u sub 0 equals 6.3, and then u sub n equals u sub n minus 1 plus 2.5. Remember how this works. With the explicit formula, we're talking about slope, intercept form, y equals a plus bx, so we need to find out what the a value is and the b value is. A is always the starting term. B, your slope, is always what you're adding or subtracting. So your equation here is y equals 6.3 plus 2.5x. And yes, you could flip those around, so if you had 2.5x plus 6.3, that works also. In part B, it asks you now to take this explicit formula and solve for y if x is 8. So what you're going to do is basically use substitution here. You're going to replace the x with the number 8 and figure out what y is. So I'm going to go y equals 6.3 plus 2.5 times 8. So I'm replacing the x with 8. So when I do that, I get 6.3 plus 2.5 times 8 is 20. So then now when I add those two together, I get y to be 26.3. And I got my answer. Then in part C, move it up here. Part C then asks you to take the explicit formula and solve for x if y is 78.8. So now I'm going to replace the y value with 78.8. So I'm going to say 78.8 equals 6.3 plus 2.5x, because x is what I want. So subtract the 6.3, get 72.5 equals 2.5x. To undo multiplication, I divide. Divide both sides by 2.5, and x equals 29. Now, just a little helpful hint to remind you when you're doing when you write something from a recursive formula to an explicit formula, and you're asked to solve for x, your x is going to be a whole number. Otherwise, something went wrong. All right, moving right along. Question number 2 asks you to do the same thing for all 6 of these problems. You're asked to find the slope and the y-intercept for each line. So what you should do is get the equation into y equals a plus bx form, because we know that a is the y-intercept and b is the slope. So once you have it in that form, you can just pick off the numbers right from it. So like in the first one, it's in that form. So the number all by itself, 2, is the y-intercept. The number in front of the x, including the sign, is the slope, negative 1.7. Notice how I don't include the x with the slope. The slope is just a number. So moving right along to the second one across here, b, y plus 4.5x equals 12. Notice how this doesn't have y by itself. So I'm going to subtract 4.5x from both sides. So what I do, those cross out, y equals 12 minus 4.5x. Now it's in that form. So here's my y-intercept, 12. My slope, again, with the sign, negative 4.5. All right, moving on to C. C says y equals 12. There's a couple ways you can approach this one. I think if you're thinking about it as we've just done the previous problems, notice how we just have a number, but we have no x's. So sometimes I tell students, hey, it might be helpful if you write it as plus 0x. That way, now you can say, oh, the number is simply just 12. That's the y-intercept. The number in front of the x, well, there wasn't any x's, but there technically is now. It's 0, hence why it is 0. Well, y equals 12. Sometimes I like to be a visual person and think, all right, if I'm graphing this, y equals 12 up here, I have myself a horizontal line. So, and it crosses the y-axis at 12, hence why the slope is 0. You don't have any rise over run there. All right, next one. As they're cruising right along. On this one here, we actually have a couple steps to do. We're going to, just like we did in the one up top, subtract the 4.8x from both sides. So they cross out, so I have 3.2y equals 12.8 minus 4.8x. Now I need to divide both sides by 3.2. Now when I divide every term by 3.2. So those cross out, so I have y equals 12.8 divided by 3.2 is 4, minus 4.8 divided by 3.2 is 1.5x. You can check also on your calculator to make sure I'm doing the arithmetic right. But now I have it in this particular form. My y-intercept is 4, my slope is negative 1.5. E, with letter E, whoa, that shrunk big time. I didn't want to shrink that much, but I just wanted to move it up a little bit. On letter E, here, we got a little more math to do. We have this 5 that needs to be distributed, or we have to multiply everything inside the parentheses by that 5. So I need to do that first. So I get y equals 15x minus 15 plus 2. Then it's just a matter of combining like terms. I still have 15x. These two combine, so the minus 15 and 2 become minus 13. Now I know I have the x's first and the number second, but that still doesn't matter to help you identify the slope and y-intercept. Y-intercept is always just the number piece, so the minus 13. The slope here is the number in front of the x, the 15. Same process on the last one here on this page. Just be careful when you distribute, because the negative has to go along with it. So when I distribute, I'll still have this 12 here. Negative 2 times x is minus 2x. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. Many times students will just write positive 4 there. So my apologies, I still have this y equals. So y equals, now I can combine like terms. Well, 12 minus 4 is 8. Then I have minus 2x. So my y-intercept is 8. My slope is minus 2. So you can go ahead and turn to the next page and go to your next video.